TK O'Ryan, the Wild Horse Stuff, a.k.a. the best around, and you are listening to the Pro Wrestling Post Podcast.
You're listening to the Pro Wrestling Post Podcast with your host, Mark Madison. This episode's guest is TK O'Ryan. Visit ProWrestlingPost.com for interviews, blogs, and upcoming events in your area. You can also find the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Anchor, or whatever podcast app you prefer. And now, here's your host, Mark Madison.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Post Podcast, and I am joined by 1/3 of Ring of Honor's The Kingdom, TK O'Ryan. Thank you, TK, for your time and your energy.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
So now, how and where did your initial passion for wrestling come about? And what would you say, what was your inspiration for pursuing it as a career?
My initial passion for wrestling came when I was really young, because my godmother's mother, I called her Nana, was like a huge Ric Flair fan. So really kind of before I even knew what I was watching, she'd like put me in front of the TV with her and we'd watch, like kind of explain what was going on. So like from a young age, I was exposed to like kind of like that main event style of Ric Flair and the like. And, I just fell in love with it right away. Then I kind of forgot about wrestling until I was about maybe 7 or so. And that was when I started watching on TV regularly and followed it for a good amount of my life. But I was a pretty serious baseball player at one point. So once baseball kind of took over, wrestling sort of took a backseat for me in like the terms of my fandom, I guess. But I always kind of followed along with it. And then once the baseball was all over for me, and I'd pretty much taken that as far as I could go. I was working as just doing the sort of jobs after college and just making ends meet, doing whatever I was doing. And then basically, I just kind of came across wrestling on TV again. And at the time, oddly enough, like WWE was really promoting the CM Punk Best in the World documentary. And I kind of watched that, and his story was interesting in the fact that he just sort of went for it. He was kind of like a normal guy, and he went for it, and he was able to do a whole lot in the wrestling world. So I guess like just a combination of always liking pro wrestling and being a fan from a young age, and then just kind of seeing something from a guy who just sort of went for it one day, which is kind of what I did with my own wrestling career. The two of them together kind of helped me get into the business.
It's interesting because you said that there was, you took baseball as far as you thought you could, but with an athletic background like that, did you ever think that, was there like ever a college scholarship or something that you could have taken that further maybe, or not necessarily?
With baseball, I was a Division I baseball player. I was a 4-year starter at the College of Holy Cross, and coming out of high school, I was recruited, not heavily, but recruited by a number of Division I schools, and there were some professional prospects out of high school as well. So baseball was kind of plan A, B, and C. And I was fully planning, pretty much up until I was about 22 years old, on being a professional baseball player with my professional life. So things being the way they go, and, sometimes athletic goals don't work out the way you want them to. And, that kind of left me at a weird crossroads where, I wanted to keep doing something athletic because I've been an athlete my whole life. And I knew, I still had a lot of professional caliber athleticism left in me. So, pretty much with baseball, what it really did was it gave me a nice handhold into the world of professional wrestling, in the sense of I was already a conditioned athlete. I already knew how to train. I knew the concept of failure and coming back from it and continuing to move forward.
Now, how did you find training? As you've decided you were going to pursue it, you start to move into your training. Training under Ryan Walters, H2O Ryan Walters, Nick Steele, Lockup Wrestling School. That professional wrestling, and how is it that you feel that those maybe experiences helped you, and what was the differences maybe between them?
Well, okay, so actually the training for wrestling and baseball is actually quite similar. Like the sport that you're doing, it might be different, and like the drills that you're doing are different. Obviously, they're completely different games, but they are very similar in the sense that like baseball is a very mechanical sport, and there's definitely mechanics of wrestling, and baseball is also a big finesse sport. So if you've noticed, like a lot of professional baseball players, they don't necessarily end up being that prototypical like 6'4", 230-pound linebacker type. That's like the traditional pro wrestler style as well. So with baseball, there's sort of like a finesse that wrestlers also have to have. If you look at guys that are working right now, you'll notice that there's a certain way they move, and there's a certain smoothness to them, and that's a very baseball player trait. Like guys at the highest level tend to be extremely smooth athletes, and that's something that I feel like transitioned over well from baseball to wrestling. The biggest difference, I'd say, is that there's a psychological part to up and you get thrown down, and it doesn't get easier. Like the toll on your body, you don't necessarily get used to it. You don't necessarily become accustomed to it. Whereas, with baseball, it's a little different in the sense that the training is a little less intensive on your body, I guess, in the terms of just like the raw physical nature of it. Mm-hmm. But really, the biggest thing I'd say that I can carry over from sport to sport is that wrestling can be extremely frustrating when you're trying to learn new techniques or new things. That you see a lot of guys kind of throw up their hands, and they can only take their training so far because there's like this element of failure that is really difficult for people to kind of grasp in the pro wrestling world. But in baseball, I mean, that's 7 out of 10 times you're making an out. The old adage. So failure is part of the game. It goes hand in hand, and being able to stare that in the face and just keep moving is a huge deal. And that's probably the biggest connection between the two, really.
But what about between different trainers per se? Like, what did you walk away from experience to experience? That maybe one led you in one direction, one maybe helped solidify that and kind of built on the foundation you created. Which one would you say you walked away from very specific things from?
Well, I would say Nick Steele is definitely into the physical aspect of wrestling. He really teaches I guess what I really took away from him was the more like hard-nosed nature of wrestling, the hand fighting, like the specific grappling, the holds, the suplexes. He loves that stuff, kind of that old school, gritty, grindy approach. Ryan Waters does a really good job preparing you for the wrestling world. Like, he's phenomenal in the ring, and the things that he taught me on day 1 and 2 of my training, I still to this day use in almost every single match I have. But beyond that, he's fantastic at preparing you for like the bits of wrestling that come that you don't necessarily know you're signing up for when you go to day 1 of wrestling school, like how to be around a locker room, how to handle different promoters, how to do certain things that are part of the business that maybe not necessarily you think you would need to know when you start. And that was my biggest takeaway from Ryan, is that he was awesome at preparing me for being in the wrestling world, or the wrestling bubble, as he likes to call it.
Often, I hear about the mental aspect that goes into it, and there is the actual sport and the entertainment and the work that goes in, and the toll it can take on you mentally. How prepared is anybody to do that? That's something that you need that support to help develop. It sounds like you got that too.
Oh, no doubt, man. I always say that, like, to be successful in pro wrestling, like, you need to have your outside life in order. There's no way you'll survive if, like, something's wrong at home, or, the outside wrestling life is unstable in any way. And having somebody to help you make sure that all that stuff's in order is absolutely essential.
Where did the Wild Horse moniker initially come from, and how do you think it best reflects you in the ring?
So the whole idea of being the sassy Wild Horse came from, honestly, originally it came from the outfits that I tend to wear. Like, if you ever catch me outside of the ring, I wear, like, leggings, or I wear, like, some, like, tight pants and a tight shirt. Dressed very snappy, let's put it that way. And between that and my long highlighted hair, that's sort of where the whole idea of being this sort of sassy individual with a very manly-esque frame and a way of holding himself that's hyper-masculine with this sort of sassy appearance, I guess. There's something about that I always thought was cool. And Wild Horse, I mean, man, that's a baseball, like you want to be described as a horse in baseball. Like, you want to be that guy that can run, that's strong, that people can jump on his back, a guy that gets the work done, Mm-hmm. So, and the idea of being a wild horse is that, like, if you know me, like, I'm not really one to just sort of be tamed, I'm not really one to just sort of fall in line and do what I'm told. I'm a perennial rule breaker. I'm an envelope pusher. And I'm a line stepper. It's just kind of the way I've always been. So I put it all together, and bam, that's a Wild Horse.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, he's a thoroughbred as well. Look at that.
You damn right.
How did joining Ring of Honor initially all come about? And what was going through your mind upon, your debut match as part of the Kingdom?
My whole opportunity with Ring of Honor came about. It was actually, that's like a whole like podcast in itself, man. Because
so we'll leave that up for part 2, but you can get started.
Sure, but the basic synopsis goes like this. When I started, Ryan Waters and Nick Steele, two of my original trainers, also trained Vinny and Taven, and those guys had some work with Spike Dudley as well. And blah 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 blah. Point is, Ryan had trained all 3 of us in some form or fashion. So right away, we were kind of under the same learning tree. Now, when I first first started, Vinny was kind of going through a weird, not really loving wrestling phase, so he was sort of taken aback from wrestling and maybe thinking about finding something else to do. Matt was on the verge of blowing out his knee. So what ended up happening was I started getting my wrestling career going. Vinny started to have kind of a rebirth into his love for wrestling and kind of reinvented himself, and now see what he is today. What he was at this point was way different. So as that was happening, Matt got hurt, and Vinny and Matt have been friends for a decade. Me and Vinny hit it off really well. We were wrestling all over the place. We became really good friends. Through Vinny and Ryan, I was able to become friends with Matt. So sort of the web started to spin, so to speak, there. Mike Bennett, who was an original member of the Kingdom, as I'm sure you know, was kind of like essential early on for me, like kind of nurturing me, bringing me to different shows, and he was somebody I looked up to early on as like, I should probably be like Mike. He seems to be having success in wrestling. Let's be like that. So Mike was bringing me to Ring of Honor shows. I was doing my due diligence to get to know everybody. Once my in-ring skills and everything that goes with that was up to par, Matt was actually on his rehab tour of trying to get back into wrestling. So we were traveling together all the time. We were doing Northeast wrestling shows, just being in the car for hours and hours and hours for months and months and months. Eventually, what that turned into is when Matt was ready to come back and wanted to re-debut a version of his Kingdom. At that point, really, me and Vinny were the only two logical options. And he pretty much he ran it by Ring of Honor. At that point, myself and Vinny had kind of proven ourselves to the Ring of Honor office enough that we were worthy of the spot. So I guess flash forward, here we are now, two-time Ring of Honor six-man World Tag Team Champions. And as far as your other question there, I know you asked for the first match. The way that felt, man, honestly, it was it felt like what I was supposed to do. Like I don't really believe in being nervous, and I joke around with guys all the time before my matches. Like I'll sit there and play air guitar on my belt, or just otherwise completely screw off and not look like I'm having any sort of focus at all. Because to me, if you're nervous, it means you're unprepared, and I'll never be unprepared. So there's no need to be nervous, you know?
Nice. Well, it just felt right by the sounds of it. Like, it just came together in the right time, and you were with the right people, and it's kind of like that family kind of coming together when they were supposed to.
Absolutely, man. Dude, talent and skill is great, but timing is everything in this world. And to go out there, main event in Lowell, which is in my home state of Massachusetts, with my two best friends, Vinny and Matt, against the Young Bucks and Adam Cole, who at the time were the Ring of Honor Tag Team and World Champions, respectively. I mean, it's just all perfect storm of just, it all felt right. Felt like I was where I was supposed to be.
Now, when the decision to create a six-man tag team championship in Ring of Honor initially came about, how did the decision factor into have the Kingdom emerge as champions? And what did that initial experience feel like after emerging as a champion? Because you're still really new, relatively, to the business, but you're being thwarted into a leadership role as a champion, right? Where it's you're in demand everywhere, right? So it's not just I'm here, I'm important, but I'm here, I'm a face of a division. So there's a lot of intangibles that kind of go into it.
No doubt, man. And you know, the interesting thing is adding on top of that is we're new to this company, and right away, huge target on your back. I mean, we're bringing in these guys from the outside that I had never even had a dark match for Ring of Honor. I was brought in basically sight unseen, thrust into a main event right away, and having the belts and being paraded around as champions and doing our thing initially. I mean, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure to perform. I didn't have a lot of six-man tag team experience before I got to Ring of Honor, so now I was in something that I was uncomfortable with, that I had to kind of learn on the fly, that we couldn't afford to make mistakes to learn it. We were champions. We had to get it right the first time. And it was something that I think that, to be honest, I think the Kingdom doesn't get enough credit for, and that we were thrust into this position that is completely difficult to pull off. We pulled it off in style, and honestly, had I not broken my leg, we probably would have never even lost the title in the first place. So we proved ourselves as champions. We continued to do so. The craziest part about all of it was everything we were doing was like the equivalent of building a plane and flying at the same time. You know, like this has to work. We have no choice. This must go correctly. And initially, the response from people was sort of this, the Kingdom, they won these titles. No one's ever had these before. What do these really mean? They're not real champions. They're just, yada, yada, yada. But in reality, we were setting the tone for a new division. We set that bar for the excellence that is the Ring of Honor six-man tag division, and we continue to be on top of it to this day. So, I mean, it was really, it's quite the experience, something I'm never going to forget in my entire life.
Are you looking for the newest and hottest in the world of pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on Powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 6,000 hours of the best events from over 150 of your favorite promotions from 20 different countries around the globe. Brands like Progress Wrestling, Evolve Wrestling, Combat Zone, Defy, PCW Ultra, PWX, Over the Top, Shine, and hundreds of others with fresh content added every day for only $5.99 per month. Get your free trial today at Powerslam.tv.
The Kingdom that we see today are very unlike the prior incarnation of the group, and you did mention, that perfect storm of you and Vinny's inclusion in the group. How are the complexities in styles, personality, and ring ability? How have they been able to come together and make it as successful as it is? What is it? Because Matt often will walk out, whether it's legitimately in character. I'm going to say that it is, but also I believe that the part of the friendship is tied to it. When he says, it's made in his image. Are there qualities in TK and qualities in Vinny that are also reflected in Matt, and qualities in Vinny that are reflected in TK? What is it that you think has made it work as well as it has?
I think what's made it work as well as it has is that we're real life friends, and that we're not work friends. We're not business partners. We're not in anything. We're friends. We were friends before we were tagging together. Before I even knew we were going to be in the Kingdom, we were friends. So the chemistry is tough to match. We're not a super group that was formed of a bunch of independent wrestling stars and thrown together. We are a group of real friends that had to figure out how to be champions at the Ring of Honor level together. So the chemistry that we created, I feel like, is second to none. And I also feel that a big advantage we have is that you could take any combination of the three of us, whether it be myself and Vinny, which you see the tag team quite frequently. You can do Vinny and Taven, which we've seen a few times. You can see myself and Matt Taven. And all of us could be an effective regular tag team, as well as the three of us together being a six-man. And any of the three of us individually are capable of carrying solo matches. So I think that our versatility has really helped us kind of create something unique. And as far as the personality bits that are in there, Taven is very much a showman. He's all about the razzle-dazzle of pro wrestling. Vinny is all about the look and the attitude. I really kind of fall in love with the in-ring portion of the game, and the three of us together, we kind of each pull each other up with our strength. Maybe the not so strengths that we might have, the other ones more than account for it. So it's just an interesting combination of we're good friends together. We have kind of a similar training, so we all are kind of on the same page with what we do. And then when it really comes down to the Kingdom being in Taven's image, that's exactly what he's done. Myself and Matt are so similar. We're both loud people. We both like to be centers of attention. We both like to, command an audience. Vinny and Matt are the same way. It's slightly different, whereas they're similar in their interests in movies and entertainment and style and all that stuff. So it's just kind of a cool thing. And myself and Vinny get along because we have the same temperament. Both pretty relaxed guys. We both like to. We're both easygoing. So all of us just mix very, very well together. At the end of the day, is really what it is.
It's because you're friends. There's no ego. Everything's left at the door. You guys just go in there as friends and come out as friends. And that's anybody that's watching that can definitely see that portion of it too. So that's terrific.
No doubt.
One of the most interesting things that it's interesting because of just the connection. You'd faced Mike Bennett for Northeast Championship, and you'd mentioned the connection there and the relationship and the friendship. But how did the matches between you and Mike necessarily come about? What was the thinking behind it? Were you happy with what the end result was, and how it's taken place and how it took place?
Well, so actually, initially, wrestling against Mike at Northeast Wrestling was one of the things that really got me any attention in the wrestling world in the first place. Probably my second match with Northeast Wrestling, or third match, can't exactly remember, second or third match with the company, and myself and Mikey went 20 plus minutes and just went out there and just killed each other. And after that match was when I started to get some attention at the local level of this TK kid might be worth checking out. Over the coming year or two after that, myself and Mike, our matches, we've wrestled each other all over the place. We've had a whole bunch of matches, and it's interesting because when it came down to the two of us going over for the Northeast Wrestling Championship, or Northeast Wrestling Heavyweight Championship, I should say. At that point, Mikey was doing his own thing, and myself and Vinny had just debuted as part of story of kind of Old Kingdom, New Kingdom. And as far as was I happy with how it turned out? Well, son of a bitch beat me for the title and never got a rematch. Really. And so I guess I'm not super thrilled at how it turned out. But I think overall, I think Mike has probably got me in the win-loss record against each other as well too. So, but I'm looking forward to wrestling him again someday. So maybe even the odds a little more in my favor.
Nice. Do you still connect with him at all?
Yeah, of course. He just had his beautiful baby girl, Freddie Moon, and him and Marie are living happy and all that. I don't see as much as I used to because they moved out to the Chicago area, but when they were in Providence, I saw them all the time. And to this day, we still text and things like that.
That's cool. Good to hear.
Are you looking for the newest and hottest in the world of pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on Powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 6,000 hours of the best events from over 150 of your favorite promotions from 20 different countries around the globe. Brands like Progress Wrestling, Evolve Wrestling, Combat Zone, Defy, PCW Ultra, PWX, Over the Top, Shine, and hundreds of others with fresh content added every day for only $5.99 per month. Get your free trial today at Powerslam.tv.
Fans will recall one of the most difficult injuries to watch was the one you had sustained, delaying your progress. How has that process after recovery helped you to become a better performer, mentally, physically? I guess you probably channel some of those earlier days of how there's that mental preparation to make you better.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to disagree with you in halting my progress because, in my opinion, that leg injury was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Okay,
and, I think it vaulted me forward. Now, I don't think it helped a whole lot with my in-ring development, but as far as being a weekly character on television, it gave the audience a chance to see a whole different side of me that I hadn't really been able to display in a six-man match. So I was able to be a manager for Matt in singles matches or a manager for Vinny and Taven when they were doing their tag matches, all kinds of promos in the back, using my crutches to my advantage,
right.
doing stuff that sometimes in the go nature of a six-man tag, you might not necessarily be able to put on display as much. Also, too, I mean, think about like when a rapper gets arrested for selling drugs and then puts out a new album. It's kind of like good for business in a way. And as it turns out, pro wrestling fans absolutely dig it when a pro wrestler gets hurt pro wrestling. You know, go figure, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, and in a weird way, it kind of adds to the legend. And, development-wise, it helped a ton because I know exactly what I don't need to do now. I know what I need to do in the ring that works for me. I know exactly what I don't need to be doing that can lead to terrible injuries. And I think maybe it might have taken a year away from my career on the front end, but I bet it gives me 5 on the back end. So it's kind of, it was a huge learning experience. The rehab was miserable. It was probably the worst pain I've ever felt in my life, like post-surgery. To this day, I'm still dealing with some effects of it, like just like swelling and things like that. But for the most part, 100% after injury and all that. But the rehab was grueling. It was hard to watch people wrestle. It was hard to watch, this kingdom that we had built and this championship run that we were on just kind of go up in flames. And there were some dark times in there, no doubt, where, Matt and Vinny were kind of having the sympathy pain for me, and we're all just kind of feeling a little sorry for each other. But that's where being friends helped a ton. I mean, it really probably saved us as a group, and that we're all just kind of able to lean on each other a little bit, circle the wagons and weather the storm. And now that I'm healthy again, and Matt and Vinny are in the best shape they've been in, I mean, look at us now. So I guess it all sort of, all's well that ends well, and it's not like I'm happy that it happened, but I don't necessarily regret it either.
Well, from an outsider's perspective, the outpouring of support you received, your ability to market yourself, I mean, it did provide you opportunities to maybe step back and re-look at other things as well. So I can definitely see that as a benefit.
Oh, no doubt, man. And it helped me build a network. It helped me, I found out, you'll say the TK Orion word that. I found you real friends of TK Orion word that. All those moments of tragedy really are a blessing in disguise. You just got to kind of see through all the BS in front of you. But that kind of stuff in the wrestling world, man, it ends up being a blessing. I mean, put it this way. Ric Flair isn't half the wrestler that he was if that plane doesn't crash. It adds to the legend. It really does.
it's also your mindset, TK. I mean, a weaker person probably wouldn't have looked at it as positively as you can, so you really should be commended on that.
Well, thanks, man. Well, like I said, man, I wanted to be a pro baseball player. Like, the concept of getting your dreams crushed, like, I've already been through it. At this point, like, you can throw anything you want at me. I'll still be standing.
Competing in Japan is unlike what many maybe necessarily would have experienced in, say, North America. But Ring of Honor tends to have this constant exchange of talent between New Japan and Ring of Honor. What have you found the difference in maybe facing talent that have developed there as opposed to those that have developed here? Because I know there's an ability to adapt to different styles, whether it's Joshi or Lucha or American or British Strong Style, but in facing some of the Japanese talent, how have you found, outside of language being a barrier, how have you found some of the adjustment or...
Well, I would say, okay, a big difference right off the bat would be, like, I would say the average Japanese wrestler has a more thorough kind of ground game knowledge in that it's the way they're trained in Japan. I mean, I'm not exactly privy to it. I've never been trained in Japan before, but just in my experience working with Japanese wrestlers, it seems that the Japanese wrestlers tend to have a much stronger grip on like the amateur style wrestling and grappling, takedowns, things like that. They tend to be, I don't want to use the word tougher, but there's definitely that fighting spirit that you hear about is definitely real. It's just the way they're trained. It's the way I don't know. It's the way they approach wrestling, I suppose. American ones tend to be a bit flashier. Tend to be a bit, I guess, a little more personality driven, I suppose. It just so but it makes for incredibly dynamic matches. In wrestling, like, the coolest thing is that, like, styles make matchups, and working with Japanese guys is always a special treat because you're going to be doing something a little different than you're used to.
Was there anyone in particular that it just clicked, but it was like, wow, I really walked away with a different appreciation and respect, not just for their training, but for them as a competitor?
Tanahashi.
Yeah.
Tanahashi, no doubt about it. I've had a very, very brief experience with Tanahashi in the ring. We worked together in Scotland, and that just opened up my eyes to I guess, like, a different level of greatness. He's it's almost hard to describe exactly like what I'm getting at, but Tanahashi was just a different level. Like, the way he interacts with the crowd, the way he just feeds off of energy. It's unbelievable. But he was something else, and not for nothing, but the gentlemen that were wrestling the best in the world coming up, Bushi, Sonata, and Evil there are other guys that are incredibly impressive. Just the stuff that they all do. It's just, I would say, overall, the guy that impressed me most is Tanahashi. He's just such a star, just such a presence, such a way about him, as an aura. Just the way he moves, the way he handles people. It's just, he's incredible.
I was talking to some people, and I said, if you have a Japanese version of a Mount Rushmore, I can't think of anybody that hasn't said Tanahashi really is part of the core.
When my friends kind of outside of wrestling ask me that sort, because that is sort of a question that I'll get from, like, my friends that are kind of outside of wrestling. What's it like wrestling Japanese guys? Tanahashi, the best way, he's Japanese John Cena. He's their big star.
Now, the Ring of Honor locker room is deep in talent and history. How has learning from veterans like Jay Lethal helped you to become the best around?
It is the reason that I've become the best around. I've always called myself that the minute I've started, but my experience at Ring of Honor has really led me to truly believe in it and really, really promote myself as the best around. I would say that there is like the Motor City Machine Guns, wrestling them a ton early on when you got no choice but to learn. And that was myself and Vinny wrestled Shelley and Saban early on in our Ring of Honor careers a ton. And those guys get you up to speed in a hurry. You have no choice. They're one of the best tag teams of the last 20 or 30 years, and you have no choice but to keep up. The Briscoes, the tag team division, the Young Bucks, obviously, the Ring of Honor tag team division is something serious. So from a tag team perspective, whether it be six-man or just your traditional tag, the locker room has been just the competition alone, like knowing that if I go out there and I can't hang with this guy, I don't belong here. And that's pretty much the way it works in Ring of Honor. You hear a lot about this, like there's a Ring of Honor style. And the truth is that the Ring of Honor style is that it's the best wrestling in the world. Whatever that means to whatever particular wrestler is different, but the common denominator is every single person in Ring of Honor, whether it be a Jay Lethal in a singles match or the Motor City Machine in a tag match, every single person in Ring of Honor is the best in the world at what they do. So it's been crucial to my development, being around guys like Lethal, Jay Briscoe, the list really goes on and on and on. Those guys just kind of jump right to the top of my mind. And not for nothing, Matt Taven, too, who is a very accomplished singles wrestler, world-travel veteran, who knows exactly what he's doing in and out of the ring. Being under his umbrella has been absolutely humongous for my growth. That's the thing, man. The Ring of Honor, every single person, best in the world at what they do.
As we approach the midway point of 2018, what plans are in store for TK Orion today and beyond?
Well, for today and beyond, I'm going to continue to do what I do, which is continue to be the best around, continue to climb up that Ring of Honor ladder, and continue to just impress people with how quickly I get things done. I think something that maybe doesn't get mentioned when people talk about me is I haven't been wrestling for very long. I'll be 4 years in November. Mm-hmm. I've been working for Ring of Honor for 2 out of the 3 years that I've been actively wrestling. I've been in the main event of Ring of Honor since I've been in the company. Like, there was no slow climb to the top. That's just where I debuted. I want to continue to prove that I'm the main event star that I've been since I've started in Ring of Honor, and that when I continue to grow and when I get even further than I am now, that there's going to be no stopping me.
Outstanding. Now, before we let you go, we were just curious if you were up for a little game.
Sure.
Okay, so this is a Pro Wrestling Post podcast exclusive. We just do it just here. So if anybody is listening, this is anybody who is listening, this wouldn't be available in script. This is just a podcast exclusive. So the game is called Wrestling Tinder. Much like I always got a chuckle when I mention the name. Much like regular Tinder, if you're interested in a topic, you swipe right. If you're not interested in the topic, you swipe left. Okay, so you suffered an injury that was pretty serious, pretty severe, but at the same time, a lot of wrestlers going into this know it's not ballet. However, what are the chances of the idea of healthcare being provided for talent to protect them, not necessarily just for today, but even for the future?
Swipe right.
Okay, go for it.
I guess there's a lot of sides to every argument and things like that. The thing that, a lot of wrestlers are independent contractors, and obviously when it comes to insurance and things like that with independent contracting, it can get a little messy. If you're a full-time employee of a company, then there probably should be different benefits that are offered. Without getting too gnarly into it, there's options out there, like injury. I was covered via other insurance options, so I guess while I am in favor for it, I also do see the business side of things and that there's other options out there, and you got to be responsible.
Fantastic. Was there anything you wanted to make fans aware of as it pertains to TK Orion, The Kingdom, Ring of Honor, and where fans can connect with you?
Yeah, be aware of The Kingdom. Truly appreciate the talent that we do have. Don't just buy into the narrative that there's only one group in wrestling that's worth a damn. The Kingdom is the only group in the entire world that you can have the three of us being a six-man, any combination of the three of us be a tag team, and any one of the three of us be in a main event singles match that night. We're the only team that has that kind of variety. We're the only team that cuts promos that match that sort of variety. And there's a lot more to pro wrestling than one group that controls everything.
Thank you for listening to the Pro Wrestling Post podcast with your host, Mark Madison. Once again, please visit ProWrestlingPost.com for interviews, blogs, and upcoming events in your area. And be sure to download the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Anchor, or whatever podcast app you prefer.